If it wasn't apparent before, Star Wars Andor Episode 5 makes it clear that this show is not like other Star Wars shows, and that is a very good thing. There are Star Wars fans out there that may feel dismayed that Andor is a different kind of Star Wars show. Whether because of its looks or its pacing, a decent chunk of people say that this show doesn't feel like Star Wars. For the most part, aside from some production design that makes Coruscant look a little different and less robust than it does in the prequels, I think aesthetically, Andor very much looks and feels like Star Wars. Where it differs from other Star Wars projects is in its pacing. So far, most episodes, including Episode 5, haven't run towards that inevitable action set piece. There will be spoilers from here on, so if you haven't watched Andor Episode 5, change course to a safer hyperspace lane. Episode 5 returns us to the slower burn of Episodes 1 and 2. I was reasonably confident that this episode would have a bit of a longer running time than the others, and would culminate with the rebel assault on the Imperial garrison at Aldhani. I was surprised and delighted that instead, this episode deepens the characters and builds anticipation for that rebel raid, leaving me hungry and excited for the forthcoming Episode 6. We begin the episode with Cyril Karn sitting alone in his bedroom, depressed and looking at the brief reflection of the Coruscanti sun that he otherwise cannot see from the city planet's lower levels, where he's been forced to live with his mother after his failure. I absolutely love the galactic cereal his mother pours into his bowl, probably the same colorful kitty cereal that he ate when he was a child. It's a subtle bit of world building, as we've rarely ever seen solid food in Star Wars, sans Luke's protein stick in The Empire Strikes Back and Padme's pear in Attack of the Clones. And it's a great visual depiction of the regression of Cyril Karn's life. He is not his own man, barely a man at all, and has nowhere to go. He doesn't like it, but he's willing to accept his mother's and his uncle's intervention. Next, we return to Aldhani to find Cassian and Arvel Skeen at odds. They have a bit in common, having both been foster kids who were chewed on and chewed out by the Imperial system, but they have no love lost for one another and don't trust each other. In fact, almost no one on the team trusts Clem, as he is known. The tension between Skeen and Andor culminates when Skeen raises a knife to Andor's neck and removes the kyber crystal given to Cassian by Luthen in the prior episode. Vel, along with an Imperial TIE fighter that flies low to the ground to scare the wits out of them, breaks up the confrontation, but it eventually prompts Cassian to come clean and tell the others that
I'm being paid
to be on this mission. It's a bit of truth that earns him a bit of trust. The tension between the rebels in this episode is symbolic of the tension between young rebel cells throughout the galaxy. While there have been acts of rebellion since the very founding of the Empire, 15 years before the show takes place, large-scale rebel activity is relatively new, and is not so well organized yet. As Cassian indicates to Luthen in the preceding episode, there are many rebel groups such as the Partisan Front, Alliance, SEP, and Phoenix Squadron. But they still need to come together. Many rebels, like Kanan Jarrus, feel that they are better off on their own than joining a large organization.
After this mission, I want us to go back on our own.
Like the small rebel cell of Aldhani, the larger rebellion needs to push past their differences and distrust in order to unite and win the coming civil war. Elsewhere in the galaxy, Mon Mothma begins her day. Here you have a poised, powerful, at least as powerful as she can be under the Empire, regal woman presented in her large, opulently appointed home at literally the upper echelons of Coruscant, basking in daylight. And yet the light pouring into her dining room is almost illusory. In this one scene, we learn so much more about this character than we've ever seen in Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, if you've watched deleted scenes or many extended fan-edit cuts out there, Rogue One, The Clone Wars, or Star Wars Rebels. We see the personal cost that leading the budding rebellion is taking. Mon Mothma has almost no relationship with her daughter. She and her husband inhabit the same space, but not really the same life. They are not united in their parenting, not in their event schedule as we saw in the last episode, or even in their personal agendas. Later in the episode, as they return from one of Mon Mothma's events, her husband is surprised to learn about her charitable foundation, which is likely a front to help finance the budding rebellion. The morning scene also has another small bit of dialogue that characterizes both Mon Mothma and her husband and their likely coming separation, if not his total turning against her. The husband comes into the room and says,
Driver's here.
Mon Mothma responds with,
Cloris. You know his name?
Through this we see that Mon Mothma cares about people.
Many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Even though she suspects that this Cloris is someone sent by the Empire to spy on her, she humanizes him. Her husband, on the other hand, dismisses the man like he's an ant beneath his boot. He's completely indifferent to the man's name or who he is. We see this again later in the episode when he asks Mon to remind him of the driver's name when he needs to use it as they're having an argument. He does use it with a lot of disdain in his voice. Back on Aldhani, we also learn more about Lieutenant Gorn. We see his disdain for the Empire's plans to turn Aldhani's natural beauty into an airfield. We find out that he fell in love with a local and lost her because of Imperial rule. He's not the first character we've seen who switched sides, but this point of view is a welcome addition to the show. It mirrors history, for even in the most evil regimes, good people are willing to stand up for what's right, and it builds the world by echoing back to the Republic days, when more people knew the difference between right and wrong. On the other side of the Imperials is investigator Miro. She is determined to prove her theory of organized rebel activity. Those who thought that Disney is slowly moving away from its sequel trilogy through all of its various television Star Wars projects will be disappointed. We get mentions of Fondor, Jakku, and Hosnian Prime. I'm really interested to see where they will take Miro's story, as we know the least about her. As I said in my last review, I don't think she's simply career-driven. She's either a true believer, or maybe she's seeking out the rebellion to join it. I thought that Cyril Karn might end up being a rebel at some point in the series, but based on his obsessive scanning of Cassian's hologram, it now looks more like he'll be one of the villains against whom Cassian will personally have to go up against. Karn might abandon his hopes of a new career to go pursue Cassian as a vigilante, or Karn may use a new position to seek out Cassian to exact his revenge. The very last scene of Luthen obsessively monitoring communications channels to see if there's any news about the Garrison operation is symbolic of how I feel about this show. I am glued to my Disney Plus subscription, eagerly awaiting to see how this story continues to unfold. Even though we know that Cassian Andor will escape Aldhani and will live until he reaches Scarif, and even though we know that the rebellion will eventually come together and defeat the evil Galactic Empire, this series is a prequel done right by showing us how all of this is going to happen in an intriguing, meaningful, and carefully crafted way that gives new life to even established characters. And don't get me wrong, I know it's called Star Wars. Blasters, lightsabers, X-Wings, and the damage and explosions they cause are part of the fun of watching any Star Wars movie or series. And great stories have been told in shows like The Clone Wars, Rebels, and The Mandalorian that feature action in every single episode. But Star Wars Andor proves that there are different kinds of stories that can still be told in the Star Wars galaxy, and they can be told in a refreshing way that builds on what's come before without replicating it. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this review, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below. It will really help kick this channel off the ground. Also, please leave a comment with ideas for other reviews and content you would like to see.